the annual meeting, we recognize what Marianne has done and what has happened in the with the journal over the last few months. But we wanted to have a special event that included the people who know Marianne the best and who have worked with her the closest, to have an opportunity to thank her for what she's done and to recognize the contribution to the profession of midwifery, because a professional journal is a critical accompaniment of the development of a profession, of an organization, and of a group of people who have interests in common and who need to share their concerns, their interests, and their knowledge base through a worthy publication. And there have been many statements made in the journal and in the memo, the booklet that's been prepared for this event, that attest to the significance of the Journal of Nurse Midwifery, now the Journal of Midwifery and Women's Health, and to what Marianne has done. And I won't belabor those accomplishments because it would be difficult and it would also be redundant. But what I'd like to do is to introduce the people who are here, because this is a special group. It includes several subgroups, and the individuals that I'd like to identify first, who are really the most important to Marianne, and they're important to midwives because we're about this business for families. And Marianne's family is here, and some delightful members. The first one I'd like to identify is Dr. Naren Shah, who is her husband. And having been married twice myself, I know the value of a husband who's supportive and encouraging. And who has enabled Marianne to do what she's done just by his support and his affection and the practical things that good husbands do. And I appreciate your support, Naren, because I know what it means and the absence thereof, and I won't belabor those issues, because there are other people who are very important that include the children. And one who's the most conspicuous and delightful is Jennifer Krebs with Arian Anna. And is the newest member of the family. Jennifer herself a nurse midwife, and we have an emerging individual here who we won't make too many assumptions about what she's going to be, except she's a delightful, how many, 4 months now? 4 months. So I'm glad she is here. Is TJ here? He's here, the father. TJ Krebs. Important addition to the family. And then there are 2 sons, Jeffrey and Jason, who are here. And good sons are good to have. And a future member of the family, possibly, and I won't embarrass her. But the other individual who is here is the mother, Irene Iafola, who is Marianne's mother. Sister Sylvia McKenna, with her husband George and Christopher, her nephew and Sylvia and George's son, who are here. Another niece, Laura McKenna, is here. And another niece, Marcia is here. Marcia and you are here.
Pretty soon.
Yes, Groschmeyer, and there's a daughter, Megan, and another yet to be. And we're glad you could come. You're in good company. There is another, is Steve Hoppinger here, the cousin? They're not here, okay. But I'm glad our family could be here, because sometimes family members don't know what individuals like Marianne have done, and some of them may suspect that she was very busy doing things that her colleagues really value because of their significance to the profession and how well they were done. And some of the things that Marianne did in conjunction with being the editor are somewhat amazing. I was looking through the journals recently myself for the purpose of dealing with some historical data, and I noticed an editorial in 1978 where Marianne was talking about the imperative of recertification. Now, it's only taken us over 20 years to reach a point where that's a reality, but Marianne was more than someone whose leadership has brought the journal to the stature that it is, but someone who has been very far-sighted in the profession to recognize some of the imperatives that she has promoted within the context of her editorial role. But there's another group of individuals who have also recognized the merit of what Marianne has done and her capabilities because they have worked with her most closely. And these are the individuals from Elsevier who are hosting this event along with ACNM and the board. And I'd like to identify some of them. If you'll kind of move to the front, I know that Paula Gans is here. And she's worked with Mary Ann most closely over the years and is now shifting that responsibility to Anna Starr. Cindy Baumser is here, who's a production editor. And these are critical people. I'm quite sure I don't fully comprehend. I may not have been introduced to or recognized. I did meet you all. Good for me. Good. All right. Well, I'm going to step aside for a few minutes. Not all together.
First, a word of explanation why I'm here. First of all, I thought you needed more guys in the room. But the real reason is, except for Karen Hunter, who was mentioned as the vice president of Elsevier, I'm the, I want to make sure I say this tactfully, the longest withstanding publishing person at Elsevier that has dealt with Mary Ann since the 70s. Is that close? Well, we go back to the late 70s. In fact, we were listening to the radio a couple of days ago, and there was a sort of retrospective brief synopsis of Carole King. For the young kids in the crowd, I have to explain it to songwriter. And then last week, by bizarre coincidence, I was in London on business and went to see Mamma Mia, which is the name of a song that was made popular by a Swedish performing group in the 70s. Again, for the young kids in the crowd. And what I was thinking is actually that the journal is very much a child of the 70s as well, I think. And certainly the relationship that really put it on the map, which was getting sort of Elsevier and Mary Ann together, I think that's a 70s event. And I think we're all real proud of that. Yeah. Now I came on board on 81, so I sort of missed the ABBA and the Carole King bit, but there were some good tunes in the 80s too. I was trying to think of pivotal events. And as obvious as they are, freestanding or self-sustaining manuscript flow is one of the most important marks of a journal that's going to get it going. And as I recall, that didn't happen right away. There were some last-minute discussions with the publishing editors, with the production editors, and we needed to get an issue out because the advertisers were clamoring, but there weren't quite enough articles. So Mary Ann turned that from a very difficult situation to what it became over the years, which was a self-sustaining one. That's very important. A cover design is surprisingly important in carving out the identity of an organization or a publication. And that was something that happened successfully as a collaborative effort very early on, and I think also really helped to put the publication on the map. And to give ourselves a little bit of credit, I think it was very important that we had also a very good stable of institutional subscriptions, and that's the basis. And when we talk about electronic publishing, that's going to be really very important. And then to be very crass and commercial, because we are commercial publishers, I had kind of a slow day Friday, so I decided to pull out my old files from the 80s, and I tracked the financial growth rate of the journal over the last 2 decades, and by golly, it's 10% per year. And I'm sort of thinking, that's really very much. Although I describe that as a very sort of crass commercial measurement, if you have any extra bucks and you want to ask Mary Ann's investment advice, I would trust her. I would trust her. Let me say a couple of things about the people that are here. 3 people have been introduced. First of all, Paula manages, I have responsibility for about 75 or 80 journals in North America. Paula is the publisher in mostly cardiovascular medicine and women's health, and has a list of fewer than that. Call it 20, 25. And then Anna, who's disappeared. Oh, Anna, who's there, has responsibility working with Paula, but having more to do with contact with the society, management dealing with the editor, whereas the production editor is someone who's probably on the phone maybe daily, could be more frequently than daily, and has more to do with the responsibility of actually getting issues out. so I'd be glad to handle any questions that there may be. But I think I should turn this over to Anna for a brief presentation, and in the meantime, give our very best corporate wishes, best wishes to Mary Ann, and thanks for all the success of the Journal over the past years. Thank you very much.
I've only worked on the Journal for a short time, as Paul mentioned, but I've really enjoyed it. And we'd like to present these flowers just as a small token of our appreciation for all you've done, Mary Ann. Thank you.
And those are lovely, and thank you, Paul and Anna. I think having good publishers behind the Journal has not been a trivial asset at all. I remember looking back through some of the early bulletins and journals, and sometimes there was only one featured article. And to think what we have now is really quite remarkable. Of a quarter of a century of accomplishments. The year that Mary Ann joined the Journal, I believe, is 1973. And in some role or another. Now, somebody may be able to modify that, but we have over a quarter of a century of her participation, and in the more later years, her leadership. But there's some other individuals in that context of leadership that I want to identify before I introduce the editorial board and give them an opportunity to share some of their own memories and recognitions. And those are some of the individuals from ACNM who are important to the Journal and who are not always very conspicuous as people. But what they do is important as it represents the financial viability of the Journal. And one of those is a really neat guy, Dick Geyer. He's been with Elsevier for a long time. He's now our marketing representative from the college, and he's very effective. I think he really knows that nurse midwives do good work, and his relationships with many corporate entities, as we might call them, is terribly important to the Journal as well as to us, and we appreciate his good work. And I'm glad you are here, Dick, because you do play an important role, and most people don't know who the person is behind some of this hard work that needs to be done effectively and with a degree of integrity that Dick represents. Another person who's been involved with the editorial board and the Journal and the college and this event is Deanne Williams, the executive director of ACNM. The relationship between ACNM and the editorial, or the Division of Publications as it has been in the past, is a board member who's been the liaison, and the liaison over the last few years from the board of directors is Kathleen Martin, who is the treasurer of the board and now the liaison. And this creates a connection between the leadership in the college and the leadership on the editorial board. And there have been some key individuals who have been in leadership roles on the editorial board. Two in particular, one that I'll mention first, Lily Shaw. If you'll begin coming up, Lily, for at least 8 years, Lily was the chair of the Division of Publications. She's written many editorials. She's served a key role in moving forward many of the issues and initiatives that pertain to the division of the Journal. She's worked closely with Mary Ann, not only on the Journal, but in the direct entry program. At SUNY, it's sometimes hard to separate midwifery initiatives, but it is not difficult to recognize the role Lily has had. And I appreciate your contributions, and I'm sure I only know a very small slice of what they've been in the division and on the editorial board. Another individual who's been a key leader on the editorial board is Nancy Krause. And Nancy has been the current chair of the division for the last 8 years. They have long tenures because it's a long-term job that requires expertise. No, but you also wrote one of the most provocative editorials. I'm not sorry. sorry. It was the editorial and what's in the name, if any of you need to be reminded. And
Email from Ida May, etc. went across the airwaves.
but I think you got more letters in response to that than to many editorials. So, but thank you for your leadership role and for what you've done for the journal. There's also another member of the editorial board who would like to have the opportunity to say some things, and that person is Penny Seshler Brandon, who's also chair of the Public Relations Committee, and public relations are intimately linked with the journal. That is our most public vehicle, of which we are very proud, and we're also proud of what Penny has done, and we will let her step forward to say a few words.
As the youngest member of the editorial board of the journal, not in years, in experience years. A couple of years ago, we were all discussing, the board was discussing, without Mary Ann around, we were discussing what to do for her retirement. And I, in my innocence and naivete, made a suggestion that was followed through very nicely. And I would like Mary Ann to come up so we can present this gift to Mary Ann, and then I'd like to say a few words about it. I won't make you guess what it is. Mary Ann, this is from the Board of Editors and from a number of your very close friends. We would like you to look upon this in years to come and remember us fondly. This is a home study program of the Journal of Midwifery and Women's Health on Mary Ann Shaw, Editor-in-Chief. And you'll note, Mary Ann, there is no red pen included, because this is not to have any editorial work done on it. This is a compilation of letters, tongue-in-cheek articles about Mary Ann and our friendships and our working relationships with her, and many, many people who worked with her over the years. And it's definitely an outgrowth of much love and respect and affection.
There are no objectives in here.
There are questions and answers, and there is a table of contents. No letter to the editor. There's a letter to the new editor. And there are some extra copies that Dan is passing out.
Thank you. I don't know if this is the right time for me to speak, but I have to. I'm just overflowing with emotion, and I need to pipe in here before I forget some thoughts. If I can just back up a little into the program and say a few words first about Elsevier, because it was in 1978 that I first was introduced to Karen Hunter, who was then the liaison that I worked with, but I was introduced through a member of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, ACOG. The then executive director of ACOG had just gone into contract with Elsevier, and I related to him at a ACNN convention some of our tales of woe, one of which I would like just to share with you to give you an idea of what we were dealing with, was an issue of the journal that came out with a picture of the front facade of the University of Chicago with the caption saying Dr. Julia Webster, and the picture of Dr. Julia Webster, who was a rather austere looking human being, had under her name the front facade of the University of Chicago. Oh, Augusta Webster, and she very well could have been the front facade. But we were continuous. But I think somewhere was University of Chicago. No, it's Cook County Hospital. I have to do. Okay, I've been corrected. University Cook County Hospital at University of Illinois. But it was that type of thing that was happening to us continuously. Issues came out, didn't come out. The then publishers, which was the National Trade Association, was a trade organization, and they did not like articles to continue to finish because they thought it was boring, so they insisted on continuing on page 23 or 48, and would take things out of context, like one statement that said, oral contraceptives are not good for women. They did not go on to the rest of the sentence that said women who have, and the list of conditions that would be a complication or would be a high risk for women. But they used to do things like this all the time. And so we were really very, very desperate. And then we met and were introduced to Elsevier, and instantaneously a friendship as well as a working relationship began, which has continued since 1979 when they published our first issue of the journal. And I have to say a lot of what has happened with the journal has been thanks to their assistance, help grow, in growing as a journal, as well as myself as an editor. I was green and knew very little about editing, and I think through the years have grown quite a bit with that. So I do want to thank all of the representatives that are here from Elsevier, and I think in one of my, about 5 years, or maybe it was 8 years ago, Paul, I don't remember which, I got very nostalgic. I don't know if you remember the letter I sent, but I just sat down one day and sent all of the people that I then was working with a letter, basically just pouring my heart out of thanks to them, because I really think it's been a lot of debt of gratitude is really owed to this wonderful organization. The second thing I did want to comment on, of course, is, which I don't know if this is my only opportunity to speak, so I'm going to get it out now. Everybody that is here. This, having particularly my family here, makes this a day that I will never forget. It is a wonderful day, and I'm going to get emotional because I didn't do that. But my husband, Naren, who has been behind the scenes for 29 years, and has allowed me to do what I do, because he has come in from his job at the hospital and rolled his sleeves up and cooked those meals and cleaned those dishes and given those kids which I could never have done if I had to be doing what a lot of women have to do, and that's double full-time homemaker as well as full-time job. My three wonderful kids that are here, they're not kids anymore, and my son-in-law TJ, and my wonderful, wonderful granddaughter Ariana. And today is Grandparents' Day, so I feel like it's a very special day to be having this for me. Have also made it possible because they have allowed me, they used to call my little office the dungeon, and they allowed me to go up to my dungeon and do what I had to do, especially at critical times. They've been nursed through editorial board meetings. They have really been a part of the journal for all of the 25 years that I've been at the helm, and I do owe them a debt of gratitude as well. Of course, there's my mom, who is here, and as many of you know, we have had many close calls with her, but she is a survivor, and she has been my model, and has given myself and my sister a set of standards and values that, whatever we are today, I think we really owe to her. So I thank you, Mom. My sister and brother-in-law, who have been my closest, I guess friends would be the best term to use, and their three children, who have been like my own children, my three and my sister's three, 6 of them, Laura, Maria, and Chris, and now their husbands, Steve and Reed, have made our family one to be really, I think, admired, if not have people just yearn for and envy, because it is a wonderful thing to see. And now that we have 3 youngsters who are going to be close growing up and a fourth almost on the way, this is to me what has been my joy all along. Then there is the editorial board. But before I speak about the editorial board, there's the ACNM who have entrusted in me. This is what I think has been a very awesome task. One of the people who is here is the person that is responsible for me being up here today, and that is Dorothea Lang, who is the then incoming president of the ACNM. I worked for her off and on through the years, and she needed an editor and called me up and said, please, will you do this just for 2 years? And I said, okay, just for 2 years. But I am reminded that my mother tells me a story of when I was 3 years old and taking dance lessons and would not dance in front of the teacher, the dance teacher. I was very, very, very shy. So the dance teacher would hide behind the stairs and very smart me, did not realize she was observing my dance movements. But then I got on the stage at the first recital. The music started, the music ended, I danced. I continued dancing, and continued dancing until my sister had to come on stage and take me off. So I think the journal is also, I think they had to put the hook on me the same way. 2 years turned into 25 years. And I really can't believe that I made it this long, but it is now, I must say, it was the editorial board that has made it even a possible tenure. This wonderful group of women plus Bill and Peter. I think we probably could make, if we tried to compete longevity of members of committees or whatever, I think we would certainly win with I don't know the exact average of length of term of the editorial board, but I have to say it's got to be definitely in the double digits. I think other people have come to our meetings and have left our meetings saying, what a group, and it is quite a group. We have, I don't think, at least from my perspective, we've never had people with their own agendas. We've worked together as a team. Every one of them have worked and had families and never got a dime for it. I at least began to be paid, and frequently I got a lot of the glory. But there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work that was done by all these wonderful people, many of whom are here today. And I just feel humbled that I've had this opportunity. And I'm going to leave now because I can go on, but I don't have to go.
This is an occasion to thank Marianne for what she's done and to recognize some of her contributions. And I am quite sure I only know a piece of them. I've been a grateful consumer of the journal. I've been delighted to have some of my papers published in the journal. And I know there are people who've worked with her over the years who've had experiences that I have no knowledge about. Her family has been somewhat aware of what she's done. They may not have appreciated the magnitude of her contribution to the profession. But I know there are some very special people here from the editorial board and who have been associated with Marianne who may want to say something. And there's no agenda here. There is no prescribed parameters that we've placed on who is able to speak and what they may want to say. And if any of you who have worked with Marianne want to make some comments, you are welcome to at this point, because this is an occasion to thank you for what you've done. And I must say that when you confuse the University of Illinois with the University of Chicago, it's only because the University of Illinois is the University of Chicago.
And I had to pick someone who's in the University of
Okay, I have a long history at the University of Illinois in Chicago. It's my alma mater of sorts. So that's an easy mistake. No, that's an easy mistake to make. So, but there are, and that's just something I happen to know. A few people would have even noticed that little detail. But if there is anybody here from the editorial board who has worked with Marianne, that wants to make any kind of statement, you don't, here comes one. But you don't need to come forward, you can even stand where you are, but.
Well, that's all right, I have to come forward. I have to come forward. I asked Ann if I had to say anything, and she said no. And then you had to go blow it. So I'm Lisa Payne, for those of you who don't know, and I have taken the role of editor-in-chief. And, okay, well, I'll go ahead and make it. And I get congratulations, which I immediately turn into sympathy. I say, no, that should be sympathy right now. But in fact, I am very, very proud and pleased to take the torch from you, Mary Ann, and I want everybody here to know how humbled I am by that opportunity to do that. And I want to tell you about an experience I had watching TV recently, which I might actually be able to articulate in words in a column soon. But I was watching the Olympic torch as it was being relayed across the Great Barrier Reef, I think is where it was. And the torch, they actually took it underwater, and it stayed lit underwater. And I was watching it at a moment where I was just obsessed with how it is I would get content for the first issue for which I would be responsible. I mean, I was just having palpitations about it. And then the torch went under, and the swimmer went under, and it stayed lit. And I just, at that moment, said that to myself, that it would be okay. And I knew that it would be okay. And then I learned a little bit more about the torch relay, and that it takes 15,000 people to relay that torch from where it starts to where its end point is. And although it doesn't take us 15,000 people, it certainly takes this enormous number of people for that torch to stay lit during that period of time. Some in wheelchairs, some older, some younger, some marathon, and some underwater. So I will be underwater more than not for a while. But that's really for me was the image of what your role has been and what mine will be. And it was a really nice parting image for me, at least for what this transfer is, the transfer of the torch. Okay?
And what a wonderful, thank you, what a wonderful feeling to be able to take this torch and pass it to Lisa Payne. Know that it will go down into the next millennium, straight up. And I will have great pride.
Keep matches in your pocket.
Lisa, as most of you know in this room, Lisa is a wonderful, what do you call her? She's a doer. She's a leader. She's a visionary. And the journal, as it exists today, I predict in about 5 years will take on a whole new life of its own. And I really, with my blessing and prayers, I send them her way, and I'm grateful to be able to step down from what has really been my life, so intertwined in my life for 25 years, to walk away and know I don't have to look back.
I learned it from you. Emeritus.
Well, Mary Ann, I really want to congratulate you for having done such a good job. Actually, I've been on the journal since 1964, and I have served under 5 editors. I can tell you, in 1964, we did not have such good publisher as Elsevier. We had to actually go to the printer, get all the journals, and then put all the stickers and put the envelope and went to 34th Street Post Office. And we were perpetually late. Sometimes you will see a journal in 1965 actually came out in 1967. Even though the CD, the number and whatnot. And it was most frightening to be in a committee like this. And we have really grown from a little trade magazine into an international, well-known journal. Today, it's one of the 10 nursing journals in the country, and we're really very proud. What Mary Ann has done for us was that she motivated a team of her associate editors, assistant editors, and everybody, and to reach beyond our limits. And I think that's really not so easy. And she's a good model for all of us. And we have grown, and we have such respect for each other. and we can disagree and still agree. I think this is wonderful, and I will miss her, but I know she'll be coming back as consultants from time to time. I hope so. Thank you.
Marianne came, I had a 50th birthday party last night. Marianne and Naren came as guests, and they left my party, I think probably around 10:30 or so. Marianne just told me today that when she got home, she worked until 4:30 in the morning so that she could finish November, December, and hand it over today. So she is actually officially done, but she went home and worked till 4:30 in the morning.
As Marianne knows me, normally to make this deadline to speak something today, I would have it ready by October 1st. So this is a little bit of pressure for me right now. I'll come back. But I'd really just like to reiterate what Nancy's saying. The amount of hours and dedication that Marianne has put into the journal has absolutely, is such an inspiration to me, and I've been totally awed by all the work that she's put in, and I think I speak for everybody on the board that we really sit with our mouths wide open and take in all the work that Marianne's done, and it's really meant a great deal to all of us. And I do think one of the many secrets is that the woman does not sleep. But she has many, many other great qualities.
I have two libraries that I use constantly. One is the University of Virginia, the other is the Society for Medicine in London. And I must say, it's very proud for me to see the journal everywhere I turn, but especially in those 2 months. And I think that they understand that they bring this prestige, and your journey that you have created is certainly prestige.
I'm Dorothea. I'm the one who pleaded with her. Please! As I was entering the presidency, to fill a slot that was almost impossible to fill. Marianne, there's no way of saying thank you to you. You're part of the life and growth of this profession. We are extremely grateful. It was more than 20%. 2 years became 20 years. 20 years became 25 years. That's beyond the call of duty. That's a tremendous.
Jeannie Reiser, member of the editorial board, and Hazel Razor.
Editing our journal is really different than editing many other medical, nursing, public health journals. And it's because we don't have as many experienced scholarly writers. We do have a handful of wonderful writers who we can depend on to turn out quality manuscripts. But we have many, many others, nurse midwives and other people, who are maybe writing for the first time in a scholarly journal, who may not know about evidence-based medicine. And so one of the things that stands out to